Okay, let's dive into this because today's explainer is going to take us through a scenario that seriously sounds like it was ripped straight out of a Hollywood psychological thriller. But I promise you, the scenario we're breaking down today is entirely real. We're going to unpack the anatomy of a terrifying new wave of cybercrime, looking really closely at a recent case that just completely dismantled the lives of one family. We are unmasking the virtual arrest scam. Now, the reason we really need to explore this today is because the tactics used here, they are so incredibly sophisticated and manipulative that they completely bypass our normal, everyday logical defenses. By the end of this explainer, you're going to understand exactly how this psychological trap is set, how it's sprung, and honestly, most importantly, how to spot it before it happens to you or someone you love. 2.4 crore rupees. I just want you to let that number sink in for a second. We aren't talking about, a small accidental credit card charge or a petty online theft. This massive figure represents the entire life savings of a single retired couple living in Kerala. Literally every single rupee they had saved over decades of hard work, meticulously put away for their twilight years, was just wiped out. When we talk about cyber frauds, it's super easy to just see data points and statistics, right? But it is absolutely vital to remember that behind every massive figure like this, there are real people whose entire sense of security has been completely shattered. So to understand how that kind of money can just vanish, we really need to understand the mechanics of the crime itself. What actually is a virtual arrest? Well, it's a cyber scam where fraudsters impersonate police or high-level enforcement agencies. They use video calls to aggressively threaten their victims, falsely claiming that the victim is implicated in severe criminal cases. But what makes this so uniquely terrifying is that word virtual. The perpetrators never physically show up at your front door. They don't use real handcuffs or actual jail cells. Instead, they weaponize fear, fake authority, and your own smartphone screen to build a literal prison inside your mind. It's a digital hostage situation where the victim is entirely compliant simply because they truly believe they are dealing with the real law enforcement system. Now, there's this common and honestly very dangerous misconception out there that only naive or uneducated people fall for these scams. But the reality of this specific case shatters that stereotype completely. Let's look at who the victims actually were. We're talking about a 69-year-old retired teacher and his 72-year-old wife, who was a retired government homeopathy doctor. These are highly educated, respected professionals who spent their entire lives serving their community. They were living alone in a rented house in Kanangad, Kerala. And here's the thing. Scammers specifically target demographics exactly like this. Elderly citizens living alone who inherently respect authority and the law. They aren't looking for gullible people. They are looking for rule followers. Let's trace exactly how this trap was set on the morning of August 10th. The scammers used this highly calculated escalation chain to completely overwhelm the victim's sense of reality. It started with step 1, a seemingly official phone call from an international number. The caller spoke Hindi and claimed to be from the Telecom Regulatory Authority of India, or TRAI, and they instantly dropped a bombshell, telling the wife she was involved in a massive money laundering case. Before the couple could even process what was happening, boom, step 2. The call was immediately transferred to a so-called CBI investigator. And then comes the real hook, step 3, a WhatsApp video call. Suddenly, this couple is looking face-to-face at a man dressed in a very convincing police uniform. This rapid-fire escalation doesn't give your brain time to stop and think. It forcefully pushes the victim into a state of sheer panic and immediate compliance. And this brilliantly illustrates just how insanely far these criminals will go to construct an overwhelming wall of fabricated evidence. Once the couple was on that video call, the scammers didn't just sit there and yell at them. They actually added a dedicated Hindi to Malayalam translator to the call. I mean, think about that. Why? To ensure their terrifying threats were perfectly understood in the couple's native language, which adds this bizarre, twisted layer of professionalism to the whole scam. Then, they started throwing around high-profile names, claiming the wife's details were found during a raid on former Jet Airways chairman Naresh Goyal. When the couple naturally denied all this, the scammers didn't miss a beat. They immediately flashed a fake ATM card and a perfectly forged Aadhaar card with the couple's actual names on them right up to the camera. It's an absolute bombardment of fake proof designed specifically to make the victims doubt their own sanity. I want to slow down here for a second, because this specific detail really represents the true horror of this crime. This wasn't just a 10-minute scary phone call. This was an 11-day ordeal. For 11 days, this elderly couple was literally imprisoned by a screen. The scammers ordered them to stay in front of their mobile phone camera at all times. The video call was kept on constantly. The psychological dominance was so absolute that these two highly educated adults felt compelled to ask permission from the criminals on the screen just to attend to basic human needs. The husband later recounted that his wife actually had to seek their approval just to go to a pre-scheduled medical appointment with her own doctor. They were literally held hostage in their own home by the glowing screen of a smartphone. And if you can believe it, by August 12th, the scammers took the illusion to an entirely new, almost unbelievable level. They didn't just pretend to be police officers anymore. They staged an entire judicial proceeding. They told the couple their case was being heard virtually by a CBI court in Mumbai. So when the couple looked at their phone screen, they were shown a digitally fabricated courtroom. The scammers had set up an entire scene, complete with individuals playing the roles of a judge and lawyers. The sheer audacity of setting up a fake digital courtroom is just staggering, but you have to remember the mental state of the victims at this point. They are exhausted, terrified, and totally isolated from the outside world. To them, this courtroom was absolutely real. Just listen to this quote from the retired teacher, because it perfectly captures the terrifying control the scammers had achieved. He said, "When the judge entered, we were instructed to stand up. Our names were called out." Really think about the power dynamics at play here. The psychological manipulation was so deep and the illusion of authority so totally convincing that the couple physically stood up in their own living room out of respect for a completely fake judge on a WhatsApp video call. They were physically complying with a digital mirage. Once that fake court had established absolute, unquestionable authority, the trap was finally sprung. Here is the timeline of the climax of the scam. On August 12th, during that fake hearing, the court declared that the couple's bank accounts needed to be verified to clear their names. And how do you verify them? Well, by transferring all your funds to a secure, government-approved location, of course. The scammers provided bank account numbers that they boldly claimed belonged to the Supreme Court of India. Having been completely worn down over days of constant surveillance, the couple broke. Between August 19th and August 21st, they began draining their accounts. Over the course of just 3 days, across 4 separate transactions, all the money vanished. The real-world consequence of this is just devastating. Hearing the husband's own words is incredibly hard without feeling a profound sense of injustice. This was our entire life savings. We didn't even buy a house, thinking the money would help with medical expenses in our old age. They intentionally lived in a rented house specifically to ensure they had a financial safety net for their health as they got older. And in a matter of days, cybercriminals sitting in some unknown location stripped away that safety net entirely. This highlights exactly why it is so crucial we understand these mechanisms. These are not victimless crimes. They completely destroy lives. Okay, so how did this absolute nightmare finally end? It only ended when the scammer's primary weapon, which is isolation, was broken. It actually took a physical visit from a relative to shatter the illusion. While the husband was dutifully sitting there on camera, his wife managed to pull the relative into another room and quietly explain what was happening. The relative instantly recognized it as a cyber fraud. But get this, the couple was still so terrified that they had to plan an escape. The husband literally had to fake going on a medicine run just to safely leave his own house, visit the bank manager, and finally go to the real police station. And remarkably, the scammers were still trying to call them while they were at the police station. They only hung up when they finally realized where the couple actually was. The aftermath is a very sobering reality check on the incredible speed of digital finance today. A staggering 2.4 crore rupees were lost over those 4 transactions. Now, when the Kasaragod cyber police were finally alerted on August 22nd, they acted incredibly quickly. They registered cases right away under the Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita and the Information Technology Act, and they immediately moved to freeze the destination bank accounts. However, because the transfers happened over a few days prior, they were only able to secure and freeze around 55 lakh rupees. And while saving 55 lakh is genuinely commendable police work, the vast majority of the couple's life savings had already been siphoned off into the criminal shadow network. So the crucial point is understanding exactly why this works so effectively, allowing us to practice empathy rather than passing judgment on the victims. The scammers succeeded because they forced absolute isolation from friends and family. They completely weaponized a relentless fear of law enforcement authority. They utilized highly sophisticated digital forgery. We're talking translators, fake IDs, entirely staged courtrooms. And perhaps most importantly, they induced sustained mental exhaustion over an 11-day period. When someone's brain is subjected to this brutal combination of fear, isolation, and fatigue, critical thinking just shuts down completely. We have to recognize this as the highly organized psychological warfare that it truly is. Which brings me to the most important question for you to consider today. If your phone rang right now and a voice on the other end told you with absolute, terrifying confidence that you were implicated in a federal crime, would you know how to spot the fake? Would your parents know? Would your grandparents? The absolute only defense against the virtual arrest scam is awareness before the phone even rings. Remember this, real law enforcement will never demand a video call to keep you under surveillance, and they will certainly never, ever ask you to transfer your money to verify your innocence. Please take the information you've learned from this explainer, talk to your family tonight, and make sure that a screen never becomes their prison.